Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going beyond Baker Street and exploring a different side of Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes.
The mastermind behind Sherlock Holmes, that's right.
You sent us his book, The New Revelation, published in 1918, and it's clear that Doyle was fascinated by a mystery far different from those solved by his famous detective,
Oh, yeah.
Spiritualism.
It's fascinating how Doyle, a man who championed logic and reason, became so convinced of life after death.
Really deeply convinced.
This book reveals his journey from skeptic to ardent believer, driven by a really intense desire for proof.
It's almost like Sherlock Holmes investigating ghosts.
You could say that.
We're going to unpack how Doyle, the ultimate logician, used that same meticulous approach to examine spirit communication,
Right.
exploring his experiences with seances
Mediums.
and even a haunted house. We'll also dive into the afterlife as he understood it, based on the messages he believed he was receiving from the spirit world.
Doyle's journey began firmly rooted in materialism, a common perspective, especially among doctors in the late 19th century. He believed in God,
Okay.
but dismissed the idea of personal survival after death as incompatible with the laws of nature.
Oh, wow.
He even questioned why anyone would want the average personality to continue after death.
It was quite a blunt assessment of humanity.
Yeah.
But this initial skepticism
Yeah.
makes his eventual embrace of spiritualism even more remarkable.
Yeah, it really does.
He wasn't easily swayed by emotional appeals or wishful thinking.
Exactly.
He insisted on evidence, and his early experiences with seances left him deeply suspicious. He recounts attending table-turning sessions and receiving messages that were sometimes intriguing, but often frustratingly vague.
Or just unverifiable.
He tells the story of receiving messages supposedly from a deceased commercial traveler,
Okay.
with detailed information about the man's family and where they lived.
Right.
But when Doyle tried to contact them, his letter ended up in the dead letter office.
Oh, wow.
This kind of inconsistency fueled his initial skepticism and highlights the challenges of navigating the often murky world of spirit communication.
However, Doyle's perspective began to shift after encountering General Drayson,
Okay.
a prominent advocate for spiritualism in Britain.
Yeah.
Drayson offered a framework for understanding the diverse nature of spirit communication, arguing that the spirit world mirrored our own,
Okay.
with its share of wise souls and mischievous characters.
So how do you separate the wheat from the chaff when trying to communicate with spirits?
Drayson urged Doyle to look for messages that went beyond trivial matters and exhibited a higher level of intelligence and insight.
Okay.
This resonated with Doyle's scientific mind, prompting him to examine the evidence more seriously.
He started to consider the testimony of credible witnesses who had also reported experiencing spirit phenomena.
Right.
This wasn't just the average person on the street.
No.
We're talking about renowned scientists and thinkers like
yeah.
William Crookes,
Oh, yeah.
a leading chemist,
The leading chemist, right.
and Alfred Russel Wallace, who, alongside Darwin, developed the theory of evolution.
Amazing.
It's quite striking that these individuals, known for their rigorous approach to evidence and their contributions to scientific advancement, became vocal supporters of spiritualism.
That's right.
Doyle even contrasts their open-mindedness with skeptics like Darwin and Huxley,
Oh, really?
who, he argues, dismiss the evidence without even bothering to examine it.
Doyle's search for evidence also led him to the writings of Louis Jacquelot,
Oh, wait.
a French judge who had spent years researching occult phenomena in India.
Interesting.
Jacquelot documented how Indian fakirs were demonstrating the same kind of phenomena as European mediums,
Yeah.
with their traditions stretching back centuries.
Oh, wow.
This suggested that these experiences weren't just a modern invention, but had been reported across cultures and throughout history.
Then there's the 1869 report from the Dialectical Society in London.
Yeah.
This group was specifically formed to investigate spiritualism and took meticulous steps to prevent fraud.
And-
Despite facing public ridicule, they ultimately concluded that the phenomena they witnessed were genuine.
Interesting.
These findings further eroded Doyle's initial skepticism.
Okay.
He was particularly struck by the work of Frederick Myers,
Okay.
whose book, Human Personality, delved into the concept of telepathy.
Communication between minds without physical means.
This was a pivotal moment for Doyle.
How so?
If the mind could influence another mind across a distance, then consciousness might not be entirely dependent on the physical body,
Oh, I see.
opening the door to the possibility of survival after death.
Around this time, Doyle was also involved in investigating a haunted house for the Psychical Research Society,
Okay.
while his team didn't witness anything conclusive during their visit. Years later, the skeletal remains of a child were found buried on the property.
Okay, that sends shivers down my spine. The timing of this discovery sparked a question in Doyle's mind. Could sudden or violent deaths leave behind a sort of spiritual residue that might manifest as paranormal activity? This personal experience further fueled his interest in exploring the connection between the physical and spirit worlds.
As he delved deeper into the world of spiritualism, Doyle encountered both compelling and questionable phenomena.
Such as?
He attended seances where objects seemingly moved on their own.
Really?
And figures appeared, yet he remained aware of the potential for trickery.
He even acknowledges that certain mediums, like Eusapia Palladino, were caught faking phenomena. Yet he doesn't completely dismiss the possibility of genuine abilities.
He was grappling with the complexities of separating authentic experiences from deception.
Then came World War I, an event that profoundly impacted Doyle's perspective on spiritualism.
Okay.
Surrounded by death and grief, he was no longer simply fascinated by the intellectual puzzle.
I see.
He saw it as a source of solace and hope for those seeking answers about life after death.
This shift from scientific curiosity to profound personal meaning is crucial to understanding Doyle's journey.
He had personally experienced loss, and so had countless others during the war.
Absolutely.
Spiritualism offered comfort and connection in the face of immense suffering.
During this time, a woman living with Doyle, Miss L.S., developed the ability to write automatically.
Oh, wow.
Her hand seemingly guided by an outside force.
While he recognized the possibility of self-deception with automatic writing,
Sure.
some of the messages she produced were eerily accurate.
For example.
Miss L.S. wrote about the sinking of the Lusitania
Okay.
before news of the tragedy reached England. She even mentioned that the event would have a great influence on the war,
Which it did.
swaying public opinion in America against Germany.
There's another chilling anecdote from early in the war.
Oh.
A woman Doyle knew died under suspicious circumstances, with morphine found by her bedside. Later, during a seance with the medium Vout Peters, a message came through repeatedly.
What did it say?
Morphia. Her mind was clouded. She did not mean it. Morphia.
What's striking is that Doyle wasn't expecting a message about this woman.
Right.
And he certainly wasn't focused on the circumstances of her death.
He saw this as evidence against telepathy.
And a strong indication of genuine communication from the deceased.
These experiences solidified Doyle's conviction that he was tapping into a genuine source of information from beyond the veil.
Doyle noticed that amidst the turmoil of war, there was an explosion of books and articles on spiritualism.
Right.
Scientists, researchers, and everyday people were grappling with these questions of life after death,
sharing their experiences and adding to the growing body of evidence.
He specifically mentions books like Raymond by Oliver Lodge and Psychical Investigations by Arthur Hill, which presented compelling cases for the reality of spirit communication and the survival of consciousness after death.
Right.
He saw this as a sign that the movement was gaining momentum and that the new revelation was beginning to take hold.
And that brings us to the heart of Doyle's book.
Okay.
Where he delves into the specific messages and teachings he believes are coming through from the spirit world.
What he calls the new revelation.
These messages, he argues, offer profound insights into the nature of life after death and challenge many traditional religious conceptions.
All right, so we've explored Doyle's transformation from skeptic to believer.
Right.
And we've seen how war and personal loss deepened his commitment to spiritualism.
Yes.
Now let's delve into the details of this new revelation.
Okay.
What exactly is this new understanding of the afterlife? And how does it challenge conventional views? So how was Doyle receiving these messages from the spirit world that formed the basis of this new revelation? It sounds like it wasn't just one method,
right,
but a whole range of ways spirits were supposedly communicating.
You're right. He describes a whole spectrum of spirit communication.
Right.
One common method was automatic writing, where a medium's hand is supposedly guided by a spirit to write messages. He highlights figures like Julia Ames,
who channeled messages from deceased individuals.
Okay.
And Stain Moses, who claimed to communicate with higher spiritual beings.
But how do we know these messages are genuine? It seems like it would be pretty easy for a medium to just make things up, consciously or unconsciously.
Absolutely.
I'm sure Doyle wrestled with that.
He was very aware of the potential for fraud.
Right.
And the need for solid evidence.
Yeah.
He wasn't advocating for blind faith.
No.
He wanted proof.
Hmm.
Doyle argued that genuine spirit communication should be accompanied by verifiable signs.
Okay.
Things we can check against facts in the real world.
So it's not enough to just say, hey, I talked to a spirit and they said this.
Right.
You need some sort of real-world validation to make it credible.
Exactly.
What kind of evidence did Doyle find convincing?
He points to several examples where mediums revealed information that they couldn't have known otherwise.
Okay.
Julia Ames, for instance, is said to have provided specific details about people she'd never met.
Information that was later confirmed to be accurate.
Oh, wow.
And Raymond Lodge, a young man who died during World War I,
Correct.
supposedly described a photograph that hadn't yet reached England, a description that perfectly matched the photo when it arrived.
Those are the kinds of details that would make you sit up and take notice.
Yeah.
It's not just vague pronouncements,
Right.
but specific, testable facts
Yeah.
that support the authenticity of the messages.
Precisely.
Doyle saw these hits, as he called them,
Yeah.
as evidence that something genuinely extraordinary was happening.
He didn't view these phenomena in isolation either. He saw a continuum,
Okay.
starting with simple physical manifestations like table wraps, moving on to more complex communication like spirit writing,
Okay.
and culminating in profound philosophical and spiritual teachings.
So each level builds upon the last, reinforcing the idea that there's more to reality than meets the eye.
Right.
We start by noticing that the physical world can be influenced in ways we don't fully understand. And that opens us up to the possibility of communication from another realm.
Now, with the groundwork laid,
Right.
Doyle addresses the impact of this new understanding of consciousness on existing religions and philosophies. For materialism, the belief that everything can be explained by physical processes,
Okay.
he argues it's a death blow.
Wow.
If the spirit can exist independently of the body,
Right.
then their fundamental assumptions are shattered.
It's game over for that worldview.
Pretty much.
But what about other religions,
Like?
particularly Christianity?
Yeah.
It seems like Doyle grappled with how these new revelations fit or didn't fit within traditional religious frameworks.
He believed that the new revelation presented a challenge to certain aspects of traditional Christianity.
Like what?
He argued that if human evolution is true,
Okay.
the concept of the fall of man becomes problematic.
Oh, I see.
And if there was no fall,
Yeah.
the idea of atonement through Christ's sacrifice needs reevaluation.
He felt the emphasis on Christ's death overshadow the importance of his life and teachings, his example of compassion and open-mindedness.
He seemed to favor a more humanistic interpretation of Christianity.
Focused on moral growth and spiritual evolution.
He presents a revised view of Christianity, where Christ is seen as a high spiritual being,
Okay.
a divine teacher who came to earth to demonstrate an ideal way of living.
Not necessarily as God himself.
The focus shifts from atonement and redemption
Okay.
to following Christ's example and striving for spiritual enlightenment.
This vision of Christianity is less about blind faith
Yeah.
and more about aligning ourselves with higher spiritual principles.
Right.
It's about incorporating these new insights from the spirit world and allowing them to enrich our understanding of faith and morality.
Exactly.
Doyle believed that this new evidence-based understanding of Christianity could potentially unify different churches and reconcile faith with reason.
Interesting.
He envisioned a future where religion is grounded in direct experience and knowledge.
Rather than dogma.
So with the religious context established, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
What are these messages telling us about the afterlife? What's it like on the other side, according to Doyle's new revelation?
Doyle emphasizes the consistency of accounts he's gathered,
Okay.
despite coming from diverse sources.
Such as?
Different mediums, different individuals, even different cultures.
He describes the transition to the spirit world as generally peaceful and painless.
Yes.
That's comforting to hear, especially since death is often portrayed as something to be feared.
You find yourself in a spirit body
Okay.
that mirrors your physical form, but without any imperfections. You're aware of your surroundings
Okay.
and can reunite with loved ones who've passed before you.
Okay.
You're also greeted and guided by more advanced spirits as
Yeah.
you adjust to this new realm.
It sounds like a welcoming and familiar place, not the ethereal, formless existence often depicted.
Precisely.
He's clear that it's not about floating on clouds and playing harps. It's a vibrant, dynamic world
Yes.
with communities, activities.
Even clothing.
What about those concepts of heaven and hell, reward and punishment?
Yeah.
Do those traditional notions hold up in Doyle's view?
He argues that the concept of eternal damnation doesn't exist.
Okay.
However, there are lower spheres where those who've led less virtuous lives experience a type of purgatory, a period of purification and learning.
So no fire and brimstone.
No.
But there are consequences for our actions.
That's right.
It's about continuing to evolve and helping others progress in the afterlife.
Exactly.
He emphasizes the importance of spiritual growth, compassion, and helping others to advance.
Right.
He's careful to point out that the new revelation doesn't contradict all existing religious beliefs.
No.
It's more about expanding our understanding and incorporating this new knowledge into our existing framework.
Right.
He's not saying throw out your faith, but rather consider these new insights and how they might enrich your spiritual journey.
One of the more intriguing details Doyle presents is the idea that many newly deceased don't realize they're dead.
Oh, wow.
They find themselves in unfamiliar surroundings, unable to communicate with loved ones still on Earth. Might assume it's all a dream.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Imagine transitioning to the afterlife and not even realizing it.
Right.
That must be a disorienting experience.
He stresses the importance of being aware of this possibility while we're still alive.
While we're still alive, right?
If we find ourselves in that situation, we'll be better prepared to adjust quickly and avoid unnecessary confusion and distress.
It's about facing death with knowledge and understanding,
right,
rather than fear and uncertainty.
This highlights Doyle's emphasis on the power of knowledge and critical thinking.
Okay.
He critiques blind faith, not just in religion, but also in the dismissal of spiritualism. He wants people to engage with the evidence, think critically, and arrive at their own conclusions.
He's not asking for blind acceptance, but rather a willingness to consider the evidence and explore these concepts with an open mind.
Doyle also delves into some of the puzzles and limitations of spirit communication. He notes the difficulty spirits seem to have with names, often leading to messages that are frustratingly vague
or incomplete.
He also observes that spirits frequently misjudge the passage of time in the material world.
It's like they're trying to send a text message, but the signal keeps dropping out.
Right.
You get bits and pieces, but not always the full picture.
Exactly.
What does he attribute this to?
He speculates that there might be some kind of law governing communication from the other side, a safeguard to prevent it from being too easy or too disruptive to our lives. He compares it to a wise angel saying, "Don't make it too easy for them. Make them use their brains."
It's as if we're being challenged to figure things out for ourselves, to develop our own understanding and discernment. Doyle acknowledges the challenges and potential pitfalls of exploring spirit communication. He recognizes that there are false messages, mischievous spirits, even outright liars in the mix.
Right.
He even references the biblical admonition to try the spirits, suggesting that this isn't a new problem.
No.
There have always been challenges in determining what's genuine and what's not when dealing with the unseen.
He stresses that the existence of false messages shouldn't lead us to reject the possibility of genuine communication.
Right.
It's important to be discerning, especially when working with mediums who might be motivated by profit or attention.
It sounds like he's encouraging a balanced approach.
Yes.
Acknowledging the complexities and urging caution.
Right.
Without dismissing the potential for genuine connection.
He advises against over-reliance on seances, suggesting that while they can be a starting point, the real goal is to cultivate inner spiritual strength and understanding.
He also encourages exploring automatic writing.
Yes.
But cautions against self-deception.
Yeah. Right.
And emphasizes the importance of approaching it with a reverent and prayerful attitude. So it's about finding that sweet spot between skepticism and open-mindedness, being discerning without becoming cynical or closed off to the possibilities.
Exactly.
What other practical advice does Doyle offer for those seeking to explore these mysteries? So we've explored the methods of communication, the evidence Doyle found so compelling, and the picture of the afterlife that emerges from this new revelation. But it sounds like there's still a lot we don't understand about how this all works.
Absolutely.
What about those limitations we touched on earlier?
Like a curve.
The difficulty with names, the issues with time. Doyle delves into those, right?
He does. And he offers some intriguing theories to explain these inconsistencies.
Like what?
One particularly fascinating idea is that the spirit world might be closer than we think. Even suggesting that we visit our loved ones in the afterlife during sleep. He points to those dreams that leave us with a profound sense of peace. especially after a loss, as possible glimpses into these spiritual reunions.
He even ties this to prophetic dreams,
Right.
recounting a personal experience that left a strong impression on him.
What happened?
He woke up one morning with the word Piave stuck in his head,
Piave?
a word he'd never heard before.
Hmm.
Turns out, it's a river in Italy.
Okay.
And months later, that's exactly where a major battle took place during World War I.
Oh, wow.
He even had a signed and witnessed statement
Really?
about his dream
Wow.
predating the battle.
This experience led him to believe that some dreams could offer genuine glimpses into the future,
Interesting.
further blurring the lines between the physical and spirit worlds.
So are all dreams potential messages from the other side?
That's a good question.
Or are some just our brains doing their random thing? Doyle addresses that too, right?
He does.
Oh, yeah.
He actually distinguishes between two types of dreams. There are those that originate from the released spirit, which he believes are rarer and often easily forgotten upon waking.
Okay.
And then there are those generated by the lower faculties, left behind in the body when the spirit is absent.
So the bizarre, nonsensical dreams we often have, those are just our minds running amok without the guidance of the spirit.
That's the idea.
And the peaceful, insightful dreams might actually be glimpses of our spirit's experiences in the afterlife.
That's Doyle's theory.
It's like comparing a rough draft to a polished masterpiece.
Oh, okay.
You can see the potential in the rough draft, but the finished work reveals a level of artistry and refinement that was missing before.
I like that analogy.
What about those difficulties with names and the frequent inaccuracies regarding earthly time?
Yeah.
It seems those are recurring problems in spirit communication.
Doyle offers some interesting insights into these challenges as well.
Okay, like what?
He points to the cross-correspondence experiments, where several mediums, unknown to each other, received messages from the same spirit.
Okay.
Often, these messages were fragmentary or contained gaps, as if the spirit struggled to convey a complete thought.
It's as if they have a clear idea in mind, but have trouble translating it into the language and limitations of the physical world.
Exactly.
He uses the example of Frederick Myers, a prominent psychical researcher who had passed away, attempting to reveal a word left in a sealed box.
Oh, right.
Despite Myers' knowledge and intelligence, he failed to do so,
suggesting that even advanced spirits face limitations in perceiving and interacting with our world.
These experiments highlighted the inherent difficulties of communicating across realms.
Right.
It's not that spirits are being deliberately vague or withholding information.
It's more like trying to have a conversation through a faulty telephone line. There's static, dropped words, and a sense that not everything is getting through clearly.
Doyle also suggests that requesting specific information, demanding proof in the form of earthly facts, might actually hinder clear communication.
It's as if focusing on the concrete details of our world pulls their attention down to a denser level, making it harder for them to maintain that connection to the subtler realms.
He even speculates that there might be some kind of cosmic law in place to prevent spirit communication from being too easy or too disruptive to our lives.
It's almost as if we're being challenged to develop our own understanding and discernment, to learn to recognize the subtle whispers, rather than demanding a loudspeaker announcement.
It's like a cosmic game of hide and seek, where we're encouraged to use our intuition, our logic, and our own spiritual growth to piece together the puzzle.
Exactly.
But, as we've discussed, deception is a real concern in this field.
Right.
How does Doyle address this challenge?
He's very upfront about the reality of false messages, mischievous spirits, and even outright fraud.
He reminds us of the biblical warning to try the spirits, emphasizing that discernment has always been essential when navigating these matters.
He cautions against blind acceptance,
particularly when dealing with mediums who might be driven by profit or desire for attention.
He even shares personal anecdotes where he encountered misleading or deceptive messages.
Really?
Demonstrating that even someone as experienced as he was could fall prey to these pitfalls.
So it's not about becoming a cynic.
Right.
But about developing a healthy sense of skepticism.
Yes.
And learning to distinguish between genuine communication and those that are less reliable.
He stresses that encountering false messages doesn't negate the existence of genuine ones.
It's like receiving a phone call.
Right.
Just because you get a telemarketer or a wrong number doesn't mean you stop answering the phone altogether.
You just learn to be more discerning about who you're willing to engage with.
So how do we navigate this tricky terrain? Doyle must offer some guidance for those who are genuinely seeking truth and connection. What does he say?
He warns against over-reliance on seances, suggesting that they can be helpful as a starting point.
Okay.
But the real goal is to cultivate inner spiritual strength and understanding. He encourages exploring practices like automatic writing, but emphasizes the importance of approaching them with a cautious and reverent attitude.
Okay.
Always being mindful of the potential for self-deception.
He seems to be advocating for a balanced approach, recognizing the limitations and complexities of spirit communication while remaining open to the possibility of genuine connection.
Exactly.
He emphasizes that the true value of spiritualism lies not in proving the existence of the afterlife, but in transforming our lives here and now.
He concludes the new revelation with a powerful message.
What kind?
Unselfishness. That is the keynote of progress.
He wanted this knowledge to inspire us to live better, more compassionate lives. Recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and striving to make a positive impact on the world.
It's about embodying those higher spiritual principles in our thoughts, words, and actions.
Doyle's journey is truly remarkable.
It really is.
He wasn't simply a gullible believer.
No.
He was a brilliant mind, a man of logic and reason.
A man of science.
Who wrestled with the evidence.
Grappled with the complexities.
And ultimately arrived at a belief system that offered him solace, hope, and a deeper understanding of life's mysteries.
He saw spiritualism not just as a set of beliefs, but as a call to action.
Okay.
An invitation to live more consciously, more compassionately, and to contribute to the evolution of humanity toward a brighter future.
And maybe, just maybe, as you listen to this, you're feeling that same spark of curiosity, that same yearning to explore the unseen and connect with something greater than yourself.
Perhaps this deep dive is less about convincing you of anything and more about planting a seed of possibility.
What if there's more to reality than we currently perceive? What if we all possess untapped potential for spiritual connection?
It's an intriguing thought.
What if, as Doyle believed, we have the power to shape not only our own destinies, but the future of humanity through our choices and actions?
That's a powerful idea.
That's something worth pondering as we conclude this deep dive into the world of Arthur Conan Doyle and his new revelation.